belly fat.
Nice work if you can get it, and you can get it if you try. Strolling.
Welcome back to CNBC Reports. Here again is Dennis Neal.
And thank you, Frank Sinatra. The recovery train is here, but we need to tackle two issues, the dollar and the retail investor. Now, for the Bears, Michael Pinto and Harry Dent are back, and we got two bulls, Scott Barbie and Jerry Bowyer. Scott Barbie, start us off. Here's the thing about the U.S. dollar, and I hear Larry Kudlow railing about it, and I hear people worrying about it, and yet the fact is, economically, I truly feel like it may be more a matter of national pride. There's all kinds of upsides to a weaker dollar. There's some downsides, and there's downsides to a stronger dollar.
Yeah, I think, I think actually the dollar is going to get a bit weaker going forward. With the Fed giving a lot of monetary accommodation, they're printing a lot of, they're running the printing press hard. They're buying a lot of assets. They're buying a lot of debt. The Chinese are going to let their currency revalue upwards, and that's going to put a lot of inflationary pressure into a lot of those Chinese-made goods. So I think the dollar is going to weaken a bit, and it's going to hurt the consumer, and it lead to a little bit of inflation.
Let's go right to Michael Pinto because he's pouting. And Michael,
Dennis, what is the upside of a weaker dollar?
Well, the upside of a weaker dollar.
What is the upside of a weaker dollar?
If I may answer your question, sir, the one upside would be our exports end up being cheaper.
No, why?
And also,
because everything priced in dollars goes higher.
And U.S.
It's more
companies
expensive.
report higher earnings back in this country, and meanwhile, it's
that's
good
ridiculous.
For
that's completely ridiculous. And I'll tell you something nobody's talking about. Come October, the year-over-year inflation data is going to look very, very ugly because commodity prices have doubled thanks to your weaker dollar. It makes all Americans more poor.
So in October, you say inflation rears its ugly head.
Yes, year-over-year inflation data gets ugly.
No way. It's not going to happen.
What do you mean, no way? Look what happened in October, November, December. Price of oil was $35 a barrel. Now it's over 70. Come on, Dennis. Oil prices are up 100%. The headline CPI is going to be ugly. It's going to force Bernanke off the fence.
It's nay. Jerry Bowyer, the U.S. dollar is like weather for retailers. If retailers have a good or a bad, every season the weather was too cold, the weather was too warm, the dollar's too strong, the dollar's too weak. I've heard people complain about it for 25 years, but somehow we still keep building business.
Yeah, look, you want a stable dollar. You don't want a weak dollar or a strong dollar. You don't want a manipulated dollar. You want a stable dollar. For now, I think we have one. Pinto might be right about inflation.
Okay, hang on, Jerry. Believe it or not, I've got to get you interrupted here because we want to bring in some of our real deal squad. We're going to cross-pollinate. Who wants to take on these Wall Streeters here? Jack Berkman, you got anything for him? Boykin, no, start with Keith Boykin, please. Hang on, Keith, you got a sound problem. Do we have Keith? Keith, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Go.
Okay. I hate to say this, but I actually kind of agree with Jerry Bowyer. I don't think you really want to have a strong dollar or a weak dollar. You want to have a stable dollar. And I think that the fiscal policies that are being pursued will help to encourage that. I'm not sure I understand what Michael Pinto's philosophy is, but I really do think that the Fed, the Obama administration are working hard to make sure that we do have stability, and that's the most important goal.
I'll give you an idea. He asked me a question. Let me answer it. There are savers in this country. There are retirees who have money in the bank. Don't you think they deserve a real interest rate for their savings? That's where I'm coming from,
inflation
Mr. Boykin.
Inflation is not really a threat right now.
No, not at all.
No, it's not. I mean, of course, right now. But you were also talking about oil prices.
Oil is doubled.
Oil prices have doubled, but they go up every summer. That's not a big issue.
They double every summer?
Mr.
Boykin, they double every summer?
Does copper go up 80%?
Last
summer, they quadrupled. What we're going to see is that in the fall, the oil prices are going to come down again. We're going to have more stability in the oil market. It's going to help to affect the rest of the market. We're going to have a lot more stability. And I think we're going to have a period of growth. But I really do think that we have to calm down and take some perspective about what's going on.
Let me return the favor and come to Keith's defense. Commodities go up in a recovery, in the beginning of a recovery. So commodities going up doesn't automatically lead
inflation. Of inflation.
And let me say something else, Keith Boykin. Let me say something that you'll probably appreciate. I'm going to give Obama really big credit for the recovery we have going on now, particularly in the financial sector.
Why?
Because it was the Obama administration that got rid of that awful mark-to-market accounting rule. Bush wouldn't touch it. All the free market guys said, get rid of mark-to-market, and we had to wait for a liberal Democrat to come in and actually put Mary Shapiro there, who really knows what she's doing, a whole lot more than Chris Cox, the Republican, did, and that has a big responsibility for our recovery and for this poll.
I'm gonna disagree with you or agreeing with me because I didn't like the idea of getting rid of the mark-to-market accounting. I think that I think it was just an accounting gimmick, actually. But you know, if people can disagree on that
Mark
one.
to fantasy.
Well, talk to Mary Shapiro. She'll
hey, Jack Berkman, where are you on the strength of the dollar and how important it is or isn't?
I don't want to frighten your audience by opining on matters of currencies and international finance. I don't want to scare away half your audience, Dennis, but I think the dollar is stronger than people think. When you say the euro is 1.41, what people don't realize is the European trading zone has grown over the years. It's no longer just EU, EC 92. It's very big. So 1.41 to 1 is really even when you consider that the GDP of the European zone is now much bigger than the U.S. There's no reason the U.S. dollar should be on par with the euro because that is a much bigger economic zone.
Why are you measuring the dollar against another flawed fiat currency? Why don't you measure it against gold?
Ooh.
Since 1971, it's gone from $35 an ounce to almost $1,000 an ounce. That shows you the deterioration in the purchasing power of our currency. Thank you to the Federal Reserve.
Especially me. Michael, even with gold nearing 1,000, come on, you, as you taught me, it's still at half the price of its peak in 1980 when you adjust for inflation.
Well, I don't know why you picked 1980. Why do you pick 1980? Because that's the bubble year? Why don't you start from 1971?
No, I'm starting with a peak of gold. The last peak was around 1,000, and now it has to be $2,600, right?
So was that your evidence for strengthening the U.S. dollar?
Well, hold on a second. Am I the only person that looks at a chart here and sees the U.S. dollar going down?
Can I just jump in and defend Michael? Because actually I agree with him, and I'm shocked. But look, we have had commodity inflation. I don't know why you say we haven't. And it's not just because it's the summer months or whatever else. Oil has drastically gone up. Look at last year when we were in the midst of this recession. Oil had already come up. We've had commodity inflation when it came to oil, when it came to gold. Michael is absolutely right. But let me just further say that, yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned about inflation now, but I am concerned that once inflation does hit, and it will.
You absolutely should be concerned about inflation.
I actually have no worries
about it.
I'll make this argument. I have no worries about inflation at all because one of the points, and again, frightening your audience by venturing into economic speculation, but one of the points economists miss is that the global marketplace has expanded. So when you talk about everybody pumping out dollars and creating inflation, you have a much bigger global marketplace than you ever have before. People talk about inflation over and over and over again, but it never happens. Like people are saying...
Never happens.
Wait a second. We had, Jack, with all due respect, we had inflation over the last 10 years. We had inflation in the housing market. We had inflation with energy.
Stop talking. But coming up next, we move on to this single critical question. Will I really be able to go the entire show without opening up that 320 bottle of Cristal champagne? Oh, and we'll also tell you how to grab the horns of this bull run. We are back in 2.
Should I like the way you work it? You're gonna drive me out of my mind.
The only one's watching Dennis Neal. He's catching on like a rumor on the internet. He's declared war on bloggers.
This horrible, frightening recession is ending now.
He called the recession over 2 weeks before Merrill Lynch made the same claim. Now the New York Observer is telling the world about it. He's the real deal. Dennis Neal, weeknights at 8 Eastern, only on CNBC.